Good morning, friends. So, friends, I have good news for you. A big and important day is coming up for many low-income households, millions of Americans that are currently experiencing financial difficulties will finally be able to claim new inflation payments very soon. A direct deposit of one-time relief checks has been proposed by lawmakers. Congress is making progress on the next piece of legislation that will be signed into law by President Biden. Billions of dollars are currently allocated towards new fourth stimulus checks for the American people. So please make sure you watch until the end of this video because I will be updating you with everything that you need to know. I will be giving away a $75 Walmart gift card 4 days a week. To say thank you for joining me here every day, I'm giving away 4 $75 Walmart gift cards every week. Please make sure you click and like several of my videos and then comment below the keyword of each video that you watch. The more videos that you comment on, the greater your chances of winning these giveaways.
Put something in perspective of a thing I've come to this floor since January talking about inflation. Now, how many of you remember the discussions we were all having, actually it was being more had at us, that inflation was transitory? And now we sort of apologize, the Federal Reserve, the Treasury Secretary Yellen, hopefully the White House, so the White House seems to be disconnected from reality, that it's not transitory. If you saw the numbers that came out last Thursday, Friday, we have something called structural. What does that mean to anyone? Does this place even care to understand? So first, let's do the first bit of geeky. When you hear a discussion that the yield curve is inverted, how many of you immediately reach over to your television and go, oh God, I have the wrong channel on, and turn it off? It's not that complicated. It's a way of people using big words to try to sound smart. Inverted yield curve just means, hey, I expect over the next 2 years to have higher inflation, so the value of my dollar goes down faster than I do over the 10 years. That means if I buy a 10-year bond, I might be willing to take an interest rate here, but I expect inflation to be so high in the next 2 years, I want a higher interest rate. Because theoretically, it's real simple. When things take longer, you should have more risk and therefore want a higher interest rate. Why is this important to a conversation on the floor of the House? Go look on your favorite financial website right now. The 2 years has a higher interest rate than the 10-year. The 5 years has a higher interest rate than a 10-year. The 7-year has a higher interest rate than the 10-year. That is the markets telling you that they expect inflation to be with us for years.
A California lawmaker thinks the state's massive state budget surplus could be put to work helping the state's low-income families. The bill, which has been proposed by Assemblyman Miguel Santiago, would expand the young child tax credit to provide a one-time $2,000 tax credit per child to families earning $30,000 or less per year. The bill would also raise the minimum amount for California Earned Income Tax Credit from $1 to $255 to keep more low-income workers and families from falling deeper into poverty. Miguel Santiago said in a statement, California has a chance to lead the way in fighting poverty. Our $97 billion surplus provides a critical opportunity to support our lowest income families. During the crisis, the Federal American Rescue Plan expanded the child tax credit from $2,000 per child in 2020 to $3,600 per child under the age of 6. According to Santiago, 1.7 million children in California are at great risk of falling back into poverty. Economists have said 1 in 3 California households struggle to get by, despite an overwhelming number having at least one working adult. These families are hamstrung by low-wage jobs and the high cost of living. California needs to step up to ensure that children and families on the brink of poverty are prioritized first. So friends, What are your thoughts on this new proposal? Please let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. For those who applied for the 2022 Connecticut child tax rebate earlier this summer, the relief money is now on its way to all qualifying households. The rebates are being mailed this week, and recipients should begin finding them in their mailbox over the next several days. Governor Ned Lamont signed a budget bill that included a child tax rebate of up to $250 per child and a maximum of 3 children, adding up to $750. Friends, the key word for this video is Kingston, Jamaica. If you would like to enter tomorrow's Walmart gift card giveaway, please click and like several of my videos and then comment below this keyword, which is Kingston, Jamaica, and additional keywords of any video of mine that you watch. And do make sure, friends, that you are subscribed to my channel. Governor Dan McKee of Rhode Island has also announced the details of the new Rhode Island child tax rebate, which is a state tax rebate of $250 per child for a maximum of 3 children. The Rhode Island child tax rebate was created as part of the fiscal year 2023 budget. That budget includes millions of dollars in targeted tax relief for families, veterans, local businesses, and older adults. The program is expected to support nearly 115,000 Rhode Island families across the state. Remember, friends, that no application is required. Rebate checks will be automatically issued to all eligible tax filers beginning in October. Any Rhode Island resident who claimed at least one dependent child under the age of 18. New Yorkers who received the Empire State Child Tax Credit or the Earned Income Credit on their 2021 tax returns are also now eligible for another one-time payment through the state. New York Governor Kathy Hochul announced that $475 million has been allocated to provide a payment of $270 to nearly 2 million eligible New Yorkers. Governor Hochul said, "This program will put money back into the pockets of nearly 2 million New York families who are struggling to make ends meet in the face of the crisis, inflation, and other rising costs. People will receive these checks automatically if they qualify. The checks are expected to arrive by the end of October." Well, my beautiful friends, that is the end of my daily stimulus update video for this morning. Thank you so much for joining me here every single time I post a video. To say thank you, I'll be announcing a winner tomorrow for the Walmart gift card giveaway. Please remember to enter the keywords in the comment section below and do stay tuned for that video. Thank you, friends, and have a wonderful and blessed weekend.
You also saw in the inflation report we received last week, you saw my brothers and sisters on the left, hey, energy prices are down, yay! Oh, why is the core inflation so high? Congratulations, you did it. Functionally 30 years of substantial stability in inflation, and we got ourselves a wage price spiral. We dumped so much money in functionally March 2001, so much money into the economy that it set off what's called a wage price spiral. Wages go up, you got to raise your prices. Well, if you raise your prices, you got to pay your workers more. Well, if you pay your workers more, you got to raise your prices. What happens when that becomes embedded into the structure of the economy and energy goes up and down? And you know, how many of our friends on the left keep saying, well, it's Ukraine. Of course, if you remove energy prices, you still have inflation built into the core. This is really, really horrible, dangerous, brutal. Does anyone here give a damn about poor people? Does anyone here care about the working middle class? Does anyone care about people trying to retire?
His fervor about these issues, and I'm really pleased to count him as a friend. So, Mr. Carter, pleased to have you with us, and I yield as much time as you would like.
Well, I thank the gentleman for yielding, and I thank you for hosting this, because this is extremely important. I hope people are paying attention to this. As I say, what we're doing right now is intergenerational theft. $31 trillion in debt. That is intergenerational theft. In fact, Madam Speaker, by the time I'm done speaking tonight, just my part, the federal debt will have grown by more than $13,000. That's right. I suspect I'll take about 3 minutes, maybe 4. But during that time, the federal debt will have grown by $13,000. We learned last week that August's annual inflation rate was a staggering 8.3%. By we, of course, I mean everyone except Joe Biden, who boasted on 60 Minutes last night that inflation has not spiked. If the worst inflation numbers in 40 years isn't a spike, I don't know what is. Unfortunately for Mr. Biden, the numbers don't lie. That 8.3% inflation is costing families well over $4,000 this year alone, essentially wiping out 1 month's paycheck. I don't know a single family that can afford that kind of sacrifice. Worse, real wages have fallen every single month since President Biden's $1.9 trillion stimulus passed last year. But it's not just today's taxpayers that will feel these impacts. Generations from now, people will still be feeling the sting of Biden's inflation crisis. Over the next decade, decisions made in Biden's first 2 years will add $4.8 trillion to our federal deficit. $4.8 trillion. Decades of lower interest rates have spared the federal government from facing the true costs of borrowing at such high levels, but today's inflation has forced the Federal Reserve to raise interest rates. We are quickly approaching a point where the interest alone on our federal debt will overwhelm our federal budget, resulting in dire economic effects. 1% of higher interest rates would cost the federal government $400 billion every year starting next year. Just 1% rise in the interest rate cost the federal government $400 billion in extra interest. That's on top of what we're paying already. That's money we could spend on national defense, health care, and other of the many priorities our nation faces. But instead, we're paying interest on our debt. Interest payments will pass defense spending by the end of the decade. They'll pass Medicare by 2046 and Social Security by the midpoint of the century. As the Federal Reserve continues to raise interest rates to combat inflation, which will likely happen again this week, this only gets worse. This, again, is intergenerational theft. Every year, we add more than 4 times the entire U.S. population to our national debt. The time to act is now. We're stealing from our children and our grandchildren and deferring a crisis for them to fix. We must act. Each year that goes by without increased deficits digs our hole deeper and deeper. It's time to put down the shovel. One of the first things we learned when I became a member of the Georgia State Legislature was when you're in a hole, quit digging. We're in a hole. We're stealing from our children and our grandchildren and deferring a crisis for them to fix, and we must act. As a medical professional by training, I'm well acquainted with the Hippocratic Oath, which famously says, first, do no harm. Congress must take a similar approach when it comes to our budget. Congress doesn't control interest rates, but we can control how much money is added to our national debt. Responsible fiscal policy that balances our budget is the first step to walking away from the fiscal cliff, over which our children's children are already dangling. President Biden's budget calls for $1 trillion in deficit spending every year going forward. Again, that is money we do not have and cannot continue pretending like we do. Republicans must insist on reining in this spending. That means no more trillion-dollar packages that pour fuel on the fire of inflation. That means eliminating our deficit so we can pay off our outsized debt. That means returning the budget process to regular order. You know, Washington Democrats recently passed the Inflation Reduction Act, or as I like to call it, the Inflation Acceleration Act. Because this bill did not go through regular order, there was a grave oversight that threatens a $5.5 billion electric vehicle plant that is set for construction in my district. It's